I'm gonna get us. I'm gonna get us going. So, welcome everyone. This is an info session about Lit Commons. We're really excited to have you here, and for those of you who are maybe watching after the fact, excited to sort of answer your questions there. I'm going to start us off with just a really quick presentation, and then we'll open it up for some questions. I'm going to show you some examples of the space and a little bit about what goes on in Lit Commons and that kind of thing. But first of all, let me just get my screen shared sound. Here we go. Joe. So, you may or may not know much about Lit Commons, but hopefully we can start to answer some of your questions about what goes on in that space, and then a little bit about how we're using it, how people are kind of exploring the space already. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. And we've got one of our teachers, Brenda Hudson, on the call as well, and she might be able to answer some questions as well as they come up. So. Um, Before we kind of kick it off, Brenda already jumped us in, but if you want to put some names in the chat, where you're calling in from, maybe a bit or two, one or two of your writing goals. It's always helpful to see, can sort of start to answer some questions about how Lit Commons might be able to guide you along that path. So if you want to just jump in the chat while we're going here, it'd be great to hear from you. Um,
Sorry, I jumped the gun there,
Oh
Chris.
no worries, no worries, no worries. So it's always that kind of awkward thing at Zoom where people are gathering, you don't have any music playing, and it's good to jump in. So when we first started off, just to kind of back up a little, when we first started off thinking about what kind of program we were trying to build with this, we started with we looked at evaluations from I would say a decade back surveys, looking at sort of what people are looking for when they are trying to sort of discover or learn things in Loft classes, at Loft events, in Loft experiences. What are some of the most common writing goals that people come to us with? And we really narrowed it down to five. They're looking to build skills in certain areas or understand sort of specifics in genre and practice some of those skills. They're looking to expand or explore their creativity, um, exercise and practice it, and sort of work the muscle of their imagination. They're looking to build and sort of establish and maintain better habits so that they can find and carve out time in their life to really dedicate to this thing that they're wanting to do, but maybe life gets in the way a lot of the time and they're not able to consistently sort of meet those sort of goals. The fourth thing we heard from people is they want to get published. They want to understand publishing. They want to understand the business side of writing. They want to understand what agents and editors do, how do I need to build a website as an author? All those sort of like professional business side questions of publishing. Um, People wanted to know more about that. And then the last one, and one probably one of the most common, was they wanted it to feel a little less lonely. They wanted to feel connection and community with a group of people who had some of these other shared goals. They wanted to understand how can we connect better and how can we make writing feel a little less lonely. Because it is such a solitary art, but as we all know, it's a very important community art, and it's one that only gets better when in shared community and that kind of thing. So, um, we with those goals in mind, we reached out to 10 teaching artists who we really valued and thought the world of. And this was our initial cohort. This is our existing cohort on Lit Commons right now. These are the 10 teachers who are contributing content regularly. They're facilitating sessions, and I'll show you a little bit of what that content looks like and how that ultimately plays out for people. But these are the 10 people, and we can talk about, and they all have different roles. So, Rachel, our builder, and Savannah, our navigator, are the ones I consider to be sort of on that kind of that publishing side. They're really exploring that business piece. They're talking about agents, editors, freelancing, publishing. Art and Brenda on this call are really exploring some of the things around habit building and creativity, and sort of really building the sort of exercises and practices to sort of set you up for success as a writer. Um, and then we have Shannon, Sun Young Shin, Catherine, and Ty, who are really focused on specific genres and skill building in those genres. And then Aaron, I think, kind of is a really nice complement that ties these pieces together. She's talking about revision, which I think has sort of intersects with a lot of the other things that people are doing. So that's sort of the teaching core. We can go into that a little bit more and answer some questions there. Um, and then what we offer, what those teaching artists offer, and what the Lit Commons space offers you are primarily three things. We have modular on-demand content, and this is primarily a response to people who said to us, I want to learn more, I want to be engaged more in the writing space, but I don't have enough time. I can't find enough time to carve out and take a 3-hour class or do certain aspects of it. And so what we wanted to make available to people was this sort of anytime on demand aspect to this that you could fit into the cracks of your day, like in between putting the kids to bed and doing the dishes, or in between going home from work, maybe listening to an audio piece in the car. All of those were something we wanted to sort of help build as a part of this program, so that the program could really fit into the cracks of your day. And then we wanted it to be able to follow up with that community side of things. So there are live virtual sessions that follow up a number of the sort of the modular content that shows up. And then we have a shared sort of 24/7 community where conversations, networking, sharing work, and those kinds of things exist and take place. And so as a Lit Commons subscriber, you get access to all of that. And like you would with like a Netflix subscription, you don't necessarily have to watch everything Netflix has. You don't have to necessarily do everything that we offer in that space, but you get to sort of build and guide your own pathway through this program. And I think that's one of the strengths, and the flexibility of it is one of the strengths of it. Um, and so if you haven't sort of seen what the space could look like and you want to try it out, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. First of all, we have a free goals class that sort of helps you shape and identify what your writing goals are, if you sort of haven't already framed that into your mindset. And I really encourage you to sign up for this. It's completely free. You can walk your way through it. A lot of, in fact, all of the teaching artists who are involved with us have content that help you kind of guide you through that content. It doesn't have the community aspect. It doesn't have the live session follow-up, but it gives you a sense of what the platform starts to operate like, what that modular content starts to look like, and how it could be sort of served to you, and sort of build on some of those other offerings that we have in the Lit Commons space. We're about to jump into season 2. We've broken these down, but in the similar way that you might think of a television season, we're thinking of Lit Commons as sort of building on seasons. You can jump in anytime. You can kind of explore as you go. If you missed an episode from a previous week, you can always just go back to it. But we're wanting to sort of shape and contain these in sort of pieces so that it's a little bit more manageable for you, the participant, to see it. So season 2, one of the reasons we're doing this info session right now, seasons 2 is about to start on October 2nd. So it's a great time if you're thinking about joining to sort of jump in, and get a sense of what we were doing from season 1. You'll have access to season 1. It doesn't mean it goes away. It just means it's sort of organized in a different space. And season 2 will be the stuff that we're building new content within, starting in October. And right now, if you use this code at the end of this call, or up until, I think this is good for the next month. Yeah, it's good till the end of October. If you use the code first month 15, you'll get $50 off your first month or your first year of Lit Commons. And as a reminder, you always get a 5-day trial. So if you sign up, and you can jump in for absolutely free, no risk, And if you in 5 days or 4 days, 5 days, you're saying this is not for me, you just exit the program, cancel your membership, and there's no obligation there. So even if you don't do that goal sampler and you want to check it out, what's going on, um, that's it's a completely free trial. So I think that's what I've got. Yeah. So now I've got a tour that I wanted to take you on. But before I jump into the tour, I wanted to just check and see um, if there are any questions before I jump into the tour.
It's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here,
Mm.
and it can feel overwhelming. And I'll show you a little bit about how we help you navigate this and how we sort of introduce new content to you, how you can kind of jump into and understand where things are and get a better sense of the program itself. But any other, I'm just looking in the chat and just some folks are working on poetry, working on a novel and some poetry, poetry and a memoir, writers of fiction memoir gathered here. That's great. So yeah, hearing no other questions, I thought I keep going then. But feel free to jump in, raise your hand if you have questions. I'm happy to sort of um, you know, take this in the directions that you want to go to. But so once you sign up for Lit Commons, the first screen that you'll see is what's known as the student dashboard. So this dashboard is the space where you'll first encounter everything that's going on in Lit Commons. Um, the first thing that'll greet you each week is a welcome message that's telling you what's new. We have a weekly video that we put out every week that says tells you what's new, what's the new content, what are teaching artists exploring, what are some of the things that are going on, how can you access which piece of that, and these come out every Wednesday. So all our new content refreshes on Wednesday, and we have this welcome video that comes out on Wednesday. It's shared in this space, and it's also shared in our community space, which I'll show you in a second. Um, and you'll notice here, there's a link here to the community, which is that shared space where you connect with each other. And I'll show you that in a second, but I wanted to show you this directory. This is one of the aspects of this program that I really think is a great feature. And it's something that I think I'm trying to actually encourage more of our subscribers to take advantage of this, because I think it's something that right now we don't have as many of our subscribers signing up for it. But what this takes you to is this shared directory right here, and you can add yourself by simply clicking add, and then you can write a little bio for yourself. You can add some tags about what you're interested in participating in, and you can write a short bio about what your goal is or what your project is, and it'll then give you the location, and you can start to see where people are coming from if they want to share that. You don't have to share any of this information. It's sort of completely up to you. Like you'll say, Tony didn't want to share a photo, Blair didn't want to share a location. And then the last choice you have when sharing something is this connection option, something you can turn on and off. But if you turn it on, what it allows me to do is to look at, let's say I'm interested in Sam, and I look at this and I say, boy, I'm really interested in building a more consistent writing practice and receiving feedback, and I'm working on poetry. So Sam seems like a good fit for me, like based on, and I really liked his bio because he writes poems about sword fighting. Maybe I'm into sword fighting too, and that's another reason I wanted to connect with Sam. So what I could do here in this space is click connect. And Sam has still not shared any of his contact information with me. I have now clicked connect, and I write Sam a message, and I'm like, "Hey, Sam, my name's Chris Jones. I'm really into sword fighting poems too. And I would love to connect, and maybe we could share some, and you could tell me what you think of mine, and I'll tell you what I think of yours." And then Sam will get that message from me. And only if Sam accepts my invitation will our email addresses be shared with each other. And at that point, we can correspond and maybe start to share those poems with each other. And so you can see how this would be a very powerful peer-to-peer networking tool that allows you to find beta readers, to find, writing partners and writing critique folks within this shared community. And so I think it's a really powerful aspect of this program because it's not just what you're learning in the spaces with the teachers and in the modular lessons and the live sessions, but it's these relationships that you can build, and the bigger Lit Commons gets, the more people who jump into this directory, which I'm trying to encourage our subscribers to do, the more opportunities for that kind of like cross pollination and sharing between peers can become possible. Okay, so that's a bit about the directory, but then continuing on this dashboard, then you start to get to the content. And so the content here, it has a new search bar here. You can search for various aspects of things. If I mentioned something in one of those videos, like weekly videos, like for instance, we just had a piece that Savannah Brooks did on author finances. She's a working agent, has worked with a ton of authors and has an idea of like how you might want to maintain and keep finances as an author. Well, that might be hard to maybe remember or how to find it, but if I click here, it's going to immediately take me and share me. Okay, that's in Savannah's um, piece and it's in season 1. So now I know I can find content that way fairly easily, just by searching for, and if I'm not even aware, I can search for um, other kinds of content that I might be interested in, um, to sort of get a sense of what's going on. But beyond the search, we have this feature that tells you what's new. And one of the things I'll just sort of highlight here is we've got a collaboration happening between our teacher and artists based on audience feedback, where people wanted to understand more about submitting to journals. How do I find the right journal? How do I identify what's the right fit? How do I pick which work to send to them? How do I track these things? And they're working on a collaboration to help you better do that. Um, we also have a shared community reading coming up, kind of to wrap up season 1 on September 25th. We're going to have some of the people who've been going through the program, share up in kind of an open mic virtual reading where people can gather together and share some of the work that they've done in the space together. And there you see me trying to get people to join the directory. And then we have this aspect of the square that people can get sort of, that's our gathering point where people can sort of gather and get oriented. But then you'll see beyond that, there are these tracks where like there's a piece that tells you what have I already started and I'd like to continue learning there. Maybe there's something I haven't started. It'll give me some options there. And then there are areas that are organized by those goal areas. So here's the skill building area. There's unlock habits and spark creativity, the navigate publishing, the finding community. And then you'll see here the season 1 pieces are down here. And soon there will be a season 2 track starting in October that you'll be able to access, so that you'll always have access to the previous season and the current season in this directory. Let me pause there because then I can start to show you some actual content from the space. Any questions? No? Okay. So I want to just give you a sense of some of what the content looks like. So this was um, Allie from her networker content talking. She had a series of sessions where she asked people to practice some things about character dialogue. And this is one of hers. It's a shorter one. I picked it because it's a bit shorter than some of the others. It's about 2 minutes, and it's talking about naked versus nude dialogue. And I think it's a really great sort of piece that you can sort of understand how this starts to function for you as a potential user. So I want to make sure you can hear the sound. Type in the chat if you can't hear the sound. I think you'll be able to, though.
Talking about dialogue again. And so I've posted a short reading about the concept of naked versus nude. The gist of it is that a naked person just happens to have no clothes on, whether or not you're looking. A nude person, on the other hand, knows they are being watched and is performing at least a little bit. I'm simplifying things, of course. And this might not seem relevant to dialogue, but I think it's a great tool to understand it. Expository dialogue is like a nude. It's performing for the reader, turning to face them to give some information that the writer really wants the reader to know. This is why it often feels a bit less realistic than other forms. It's stylized and functional, and a bit less like the way humans speak to each other in the real world. In the real world, we frequently perform for the other people in the conversation, but it's only very rarely that we're putting on a show for an outsider or an eavesdropper. This is why many writers try to avoid expository dialogue, though I actually think it has its place. I also think films teach us to hear it as a lot more natural than it is, because movies don't have the same tools to give you information. So I'm not proposing that we never write that way. I'm only suggesting that considering naked and nude, considering whether a conversation is being performed for the people in it or out of it, whether the two or more characters face each other or turn to face and maybe show off for the reader, considering these things can be a great tool for writing whichever kind of dialogue it is that best serves your story.
So that's a quick example of, and then she had a reading and an exercise that sort of worked with people, and then they could share that, the work that they did that week in the shared community, and then follow up in the live session with Allie. And it's not just videos that show up in these spaces. We also have some of our teaching artists have been experimenting with audio. This is Shannon's talking about first person histories. I won't share this whole audio clip, but I'll just give you a sense of what this is like in this space. And this is the kind of thing, the audio pieces are really great because these are downloadable. You can attach them into like a podcast app. You can bring them with you. You can bring them in the car. And so these are some things that sort of like I mentioned, can fit into the cracks of the day that you're trying to fit into your busy life.
So this week I want to shift gears a little bit, have us do something a little bit different. I am beginning to get everything together for the start of my classes at Minneapolis College next week, like everyone else. And the first book that we're going to be reading is called Daughters of Erowilo. Subtitle is Stories of Somali Women by Ayan Aden. And that was published by Minnesota Historical Society Press in 2022. And it is 14 first-person oral histories. You know, they're not like, you know, when you say oral history to me, that sort of sounds like a very defined academic type of text, but they're personal stories basically of these 14 Somali women, and all the things that have happened in their lives that are significant to them. Most of them, I'd say now, are between their 20s and 30s, but they're from all over the country. So for this week, I want you to actually pick somebody in your life. It could be a close friend, it could be a parent, it could be a sibling, maybe it's somebody in your neighborhood that you're close to. I don't know. But I want you to grab an oral history from them.
Okay, and you get the point. And then she walks you through what she's looking for in that exercise and what you're supposed to get out of it. And then she has some side pieces to go along with that. And then there's conversation that follows that. So it's more prompts and activities that take place. And it also takes place in written form. So I was mentioning this collaborative project that Allie and Kate are doing. So this is Allie or Kate this week in her poetry uh, pathway is talking about finding journals for poetry publication, and she's looking at um, all the different ways that you can go about that, and challenging the community to work with her and sort of identify their kind of key places for publication, and really talking and then following up with her in her live session where people are going to kind of share notes and talk about what they kind of learned, what their kind of experience was, what their recommendations were. And it's another great way in which you can sort of take that power of community and work at figuring out ways to work together to sort of to kind of to navigate things that are often hard to find, right? And then the last one I wanted to show you, I'm not going to show you this whole video because it's 18 minutes long, but this is Savannah talking about working with an agent. And I just wanted to give you a sense of that sort of more professional side of things that are going on in this space as well.
Hello, Lit Commons folks. For the next couple of weeks, we are going to delve a little bit more deeply into a couple of the topics that I've touched on that are smaller parts of bigger things. We're going to get right into them here. And those are the phone call that you have with an agent, what it's like when you start working with an agent, what it's like when you start working with an agency, what it's like when you start working with an editor. We're also going to have an interview with an editor, which will be great. We'll be chatting about, how an editor sees things from their perspective, also how they work with writers, how they work with agents, just a little bit more of a well-rounded view for you. So without further
And so I just kind of wanted to share this because a number of our teaching artists have also taken this kind of approach where they break up some of their content into a series. So this was a series she did about working with an agent or getting the call from the agent, working with an agent, working with an agency, working with an editor. She had then an interview with an editor. So it became like a multi-week series that she did. And a number of our teaching artists have sort of taken this piece on. So it kind of creates these little modules of conversation that kind of build on each other. And so the last piece I wanted to share with you here in this space is that community piece that I was speaking to. So the other piece that you then have access to as a subscriber is this Lit Commons community space. It looks very familiar probably to many of you in terms of like how it operates. It looks very much kind of like a Facebook Lite kind of experience. And the thing that is contained here are all of our live sessions. If you're interested in this, you can click on the events and see all of the upcoming live sessions. You can then click on them and get access to them and get the link to attend it and join it. And then you go into the main space and you get the conversation. So here's the welcome message that I published on Wednesday. There's more conversation about posting your submission goals here. And these are the kinds of conversations that start happening in the space where people can then follow up in those live sessions or share work here. A number of invitations have been to be sharing responses to exercises that happen in the space. And that all then starts to happen in these spaces to create conversation amongst kind of participants. So I think that's what I wanted to mostly share with folks, but I see Allie's joined us as well. I don't know if Brenda or Allie, if you want to just speak to any of your experiences as teachers in the program, or if we have any questions from folks on the call as well. Ellen, it looks like you had a question.
Yeah, hi. I just unmuted myself. I have a hearing loss, and from having measles when I was 3. When you have those audio pieces, are they captioned
Yes.
at all?
Yep.
Captioned.
All of our videos are captioned.
Well,
yeah, everything has captioning.
Even just the audio where there isn't a video.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There's a text piece that goes along with it. So there's an audio or text transcript of the audio.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Well, Brenda, I see you unmuted. Why don't you just jump in, introduce yourself, and maybe talk a little bit about your space and your experience in the Lit Commons space so far.
Yeah, yes, happy to do so. So I'm Brenda Hudson. I am the Muse in the Muse Pathway, which is all about um, prompts and getting you to write and really coming to the page or the screen in a playful way, maybe getting, new thoughts down on the page. And I just wanted to say the thing about Lit Commons that I've been really excited about is this sense of community and seeing people across weeks and months, and people dip in and dip out. It's just been really cool to see, not only for myself as a teacher, but the connections between other writers has been really awesome. And so the content that drops on the Wednesday, the modules, the asynchronous learning, it's really, it is interesting to see like cross-pollination across the different pathways. And then when they come to the live session, it's fun to hear, if they tried the lessons, and that's a way to also catch up on any questions about it, and have, people in the Muse, they have been sharing what they do. So it's just been really, I think it's a really lovely combination between learning and community, and the community that can keep going. I know I've taught classes at the Loft, and at the end of maybe it's a 4-week session, everybody's like, oh, we're just getting to know each other. So I like to think of this as the Loft class that never ends.
Yeah, I love what you say. I mean, I think I think you're right, Brenda. I think it becomes like I look forward to my live sessions. I'm going to see some of the same people. I've got this group that just wants to talk about these things that I'm really interested in, which is, kind of why I started teaching in the first place. Like I have this, I want to geek about some craft technique. So I'll get a bunch of people in the room and we'll all do it together. And that's really fun. And I keep learning from it. But I also, one of the things that is really fun to me about this and that I'm learning from a ton is that I'm the networker. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself, did I? I'm Allie, I'm Allison Wiss. I'm the networker here. And when I first sort of was asked to do that role, I was kind of like, I don't know what that means. Because I was worried it was kind of about like, oh, going to a party and schmoozing people to get your publishing deal, which is not what I do or know how to do or, feel comfortable with. But I've really been interpreting it to be community building here, to be, building connections and relationships with each other. And it's a really good fit for me because I've already, I've really, over the course of my career, have come more and more to see writing as always a conversation, as always a collaboration between different people. Sometimes that's really obvious in sort of editor relationships or workshops. Sometimes it's this connection with the reader, or the past or the future. But in all these ways, so I sort of like keep noticing too, and especially in the live sessions and in the lessons that I'm building, is that if I look at something that is a craft-based thing and I find a way we can work on it together, we're building even more skills because that sort of pushes you to externalize what it is you're doing, all these instincts we have. We almost always come to writing because there's some part of it that we're good at, even if we're not confident that we're good at all pieces of it, So we have these skills. And sometimes we don't say them out loud, so we don't really recognize what they are. But then when we do that, we say it out loud, we understand more what we're doing, we become more purposeful, and we get to see other people's processes that are often sort of shut off from us. So when we do these projects together, it's not me handing down wisdom as, as this teaching artist, it's that we're all just sort of building this wisdom together. And we're all just sort of seeing each other's minds. And, and as that happens, of course, we're getting to know each other, we're building relationships and community. And that's That's accountability, of course, because then we want to show up for each other. But it's also just, the skills are all a part of that. And I've just really been learning and seeing that, happen more and more as I'm here. And I think it's really helping. It's helping my process. It's helping me also become a better writer as I hear these things from the people who are in the program. So I think it's wonderful.
One of the things I'm so excited about, Allie, and maybe you can speak to this, is that sense of community and almost that co-creation piece. And I wonder if you can speak to your, like the submission September that you're working with Kate. And that was really what, as I understand it, was really a response to what you were hearing from each of you were hearing from your participants about wanting more information on this and being hungry to understand like this kind of nebulous cloak, like
Yeah.
literary journals are themselves like a whole tough nut to crack. And so I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if you can speak to that process and like how that came about in terms of building that.
Yeah, you're right about all of that, but it's such a great thing about this space is that it's flexible. It sort of happened a little bit by coincidence that in my pathway in the networker space, we were really generating a lot of new material. I did what I called Flash Summer. We were all writing new bits of Flash fiction. Kate was doing something similar in the poetry pathway, and they were generating a bunch of new poems, and we were sharing them, and we were all sort of building this exciting thing. And then, we sort of come to the end of the summer. What do we do with this? Well, and obvious things, let's get it into the world, let's revise, let's do all that too. So yeah, people were asking about that. And they also seemed to, some people in the community are definitely already doing this, already comfortable with it. But there were folks who were a little scared, and didn't really know what was going on. So Kate and I were talking about, the conversation started on the community space. She posted about it and I popped in and was like, "Ooh, can I join?" Which is, fun, right? And everybody was like, "Yeah, let's do this." And then too, though, once I got in there, I was like, "Wait a minute. We also have all these other resources from other pathways." Rachel, the builder, and Savannah, the navigator, have both done work with submission. So in my lesson, I'm trying to link to that. But then as sort of this collaborative bit of it, we're going to do in the live session tonight, we're going to get started on this, and I hope it's not just once, but continuously and also asynchronously, is we're building a spreadsheet with information about submitting to journals. Part of what we're going to do is sort of the nuts and bolts of how to do it. We're going to do a lot of overcoming sort of, fears with doing it, but we're also just going to go through how do you decide where your work might fit. So if I'm doing all this research into places like, oh, what's prestigious, what takes things, what accepts Flash, what accepts poetry, like if I'm doing that with a team, first of all, we're going to get more information together quickly, right? We're just going to, we're going to share the burden of this, which can sometimes be a distraction from actually writing, but also we're in it together then. If we're all researching these places, then we can be excited for each other when we, take it that step beyond and actually submit. And ooh, we're going to be excited for each other when we start getting acceptances, because I know it's going to happen. People are talented here and they're putting in a lot of work. And I think, I think it's going to be so wonderful, right? That's accountability that just comes from being in community with people as we share each other's joys and also each other's struggles. We can commiserate, when we get rejections, but just making it a team thing, when it's so often so lonely is what I'm hoping to do with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, thanks. No, I'm really excited about that. And yeah, Brenda's right. I have heard we've already had some of those
Yeah.
joys, although of course everyone knows writing is filled with rejection, so there's probably some of that as well. So it's good to have both. No, thank you for both of the perspective there. I think you mentioned the flexibility of this space. I am just sort of so thrilled when we hired we kind of went out, and Mary Ann can maybe speak to this because she was the one who really came up with the lineup basically and recruited people involved with this program. But I'm just so excited because I knew this would require people who could come in and like kind of go with the flow and find those flexible moments and really like build something that sort of fit into what they wanted to do, but what the kind of the community wanted to do as well, and sort of match those things together. And I've been really excited with some of the results. I think we've seen, like Allie, your piece about Flash Summer. We've seen a number of other people kind of building these series based on responses, based on what community was sort of interested in. And I think that's another really interesting aspect of this is like you can come in as a participant and literally help co-create the learning environment that you want to be part of. And that I think is pretty powerful.
And
So-
receive so much at this point, individualized attention from the teaching
Yes.
artists.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's such an seen thing, but oftentimes, yeah, you're just getting kind of like just front and center access to folks and their brains, and it's really, really cool to see. And also, I hope that that community space can also be a place where we can continue to celebrate folks and they can share those some, acceptances and things like that. Because I think, yeah, we should be celebrating more.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
I had a question. So you went through a lot of the stuff, the different people that did creativity and genre and stuff. Aaron was, does Aaron cover revision? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, revision is one thing that I'm just kind of I bounce all over the place, so it's really hard for me to kind of pull things together. And I'd love to get some thoughts about that. The other thing is writing craft. Sometimes like a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking, how do people deal with, how do different writers do paragraphs, for instance, or chapters? And it's, do you cover things like that, or is there a way to tap into that?
Well, so
Can I just say
Allie,
really
yeah, go ahead.
quickly that now I'm going to do a module on paragraphing. I love it. I love to think about it. Nobody's ever let me teach a class just on paragraphing. It's one of my favorite things to think about, but now the wheels are spinning. I can do that. But also answer for real, Chris.
So yeah, it sounds like, I mean, that's the kind of thing I'm exactly speaking to, is like you can ask and you can talk, you can kind of have these relationships and sort of like figure out some of the learning paths. But to speak to the revision side of this, Erin's content has been really great. I think she's taken the idea of revision and taken it away from sort of the red pen with the kind of the cross out piece and really had us think about ways we can come at it from different directions. So like, for instance, she had this, one of my favorite lessons that she's done so far. She had this exercise where she had participants listen to one of her favorite podcasts called Song Exploder. It related to and Song Exploder is a podcast that talks about one song and how that song came to be, what its history is, how it changed over time, what kind of things got involved, like once producers and other musicians came in, and how that song sort of evolved over time. And from that sort of podcast about a song's evolution, she took an exercise that challenged us to think about, well, how can we take some of that practice from that podcast episode and put it into our revision practice? What can we learn from this, and what can we take from it and put into our own sort of revision practice? And I loved the way that she did, and this isn't just a one-time thing. This is a consistent sort of pattern for her, was in finding different entry points into the revision practice. And I think that's so important, because sometimes you sit there and it really does just feel like, oh, I'm the red pen editor and I just have to find the way to make this sound better. And I think revision, when you take a step back, is such a bigger and broader subject. It's a way of like, how can I reimagine this work and come at it from a different direction, a different angle, a different whatever, to make it better? And what would it do if I did this? What would it do if I did this? What would it, all those kinds of questions that you can ask yourself. And I think that's definitely going on in those spaces. Are there any other questions from folks? I know there's some of you, I know some of you signed up for this and then weren't able to make it. We'll be sending you the recording. If you are watching this recording and wish you would have been here because you have a burning question that you didn't get to ask because you weren't here, you can feel free to send that to me, cjones@loft.org. And I am happy to help answer questions, maybe, connect with folks who can answer if I can't. We're really excited about this program. We want to see it grow. We want to see it work for people. We want to see, and we want it to be a fit for you too. We want to make sure that you're going to get what you want out of the program that we're offering here. So, any other?
Great.
Yeah, questions? So again, first month 15, if you want to get $50 off your first month or your first year, you can use that code up until the end of October. Brenda, Allie, Marianne, anything to add?
There's a season 1 Lit Commons reading taking place on September 25th. So you could theoretically join, get dip your toes in some of the spaces and then see what folks have been up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're excited about that. We're excited about kind of being able to, another reason we wanted to do this in seasons was it's a kind of a way to, like, for something that is sort of ongoing, to have a sort of an endpoint to do some of those community-based things, to do some of that celebratory piece, and to have sort of that fresh start kind of thing and that new beginning piece. So it's a nice way to, like, that content's still there, it's still available, but we're gonna kind of progress as a community into sort of new spaces and organize ourselves in sort of a new way. So well, hearing no other thoughts or questions, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Appreciate Allie, Brenda, Marianne, and sounds like Shannon was on the call too. I can't see her, but thanks to you four for joining us. And let me know if you have any questions. All right.